Welcome to Ancient Wild TV. Today we're diving deep into the Ice Age to explore one of the most feared and powerful predators to ever roam the Earth. The Smilodon. Known for its massive saber teeth and incredible strength, this saber-toothed cat ruled over some of the largest creatures of its time. But what made it so deadly? How did it thrive in such a brutal era? Join us as we uncover the secrets of this apex predator and its incredible journey through history. One has to be a predator if one is to be an apex predator. Ultimately, it's in the name. Furthermore, it's not crazy to argue that certain predators have it good, since an apex predator indicates that you rule in your habitat. But if life was so nice for the top dogs, then why are predators hardly more than their prey? The response has to do with the fact that whereas carnivores have to rely on getting their share from herbivores, which typically results in them receiving just 10% of what the herbivore originally received from the producer, herbivores get their energy straight from the energy producers themselves, hence leading to smaller average sizes for predators. Because of evolution, predators now have a great range of deadly weapons and tools to assist equal the playing field from this size differential. Such qualities included pack hunting, razor-sharp claws, and a strong bite. Clearly, it has also worked out nicely since many predators can kill prey far larger than themselves. Once in a rare occurrence, a carnivore arrives that develops weapons specifically meant for giants alone, therefore augmenting the ability of big game hunting to the extreme. And barely a few thousand years ago, one kitty cat roving the planet had honed this art. Said another way, the Smilodon was the ruler of the Ice Age. The Smilodon is one of those extinct species almost everyone knows, or at least recognizes, thanks in great part to its amazing look and gigantic saber fangs. A situation benefited by its representation in well-known films such Ice Age. Still, it did not start out this way, even though everyone knew it was a cat. Paleontologists initially believed it to be an extraordinarily huge hyena, as when it was first found over 160 years ago in Brazil. This erroneous assessment arose from solitary cheek teeth that most closely matched those of live hyenas, and shortly this new mammal was called Hyena neogyea. Fortunately for the heritage of the Smilodon, though, it soon became clear that there were far more fossils around than simply few teeth. And a few years later, hundreds of fresh body parts, including foot bones, skull material, and enormous canines nearly too large for this creature's mouth, were found. These extra bones would also indicate that this had not been a hyena, but rather a unique genus of felid, clearly massive in size and considerably more sturdy than any known current cat. This in mind, paleontologists chose to title it Smilodon populator, with the Smilodon component meaning knife tooth after its massive teeth, while populator apparently translates into the destroyer, or he who causes havoc. Given the fatal nature of this predator, a suitable species name would be. Along with the name change, the reclassification spurred greater investigation on what kind of felid exactly. Paleontologists now still work on this project. They currently classify the great majority of what people commonly refer to as saber-toothed tigers in the now extinct subfamily, Machaerodontini. With arguably their closest cousins belonging to the feline family, a more appropriate moniker is saber-toothed cats, as this group is not closely linked to tigers or any other living cat for that matter. Smilodon was further categorized as a member of the Machaerodontini, who go by the name dirk-toothed cats. This group is particularly lonely as, thus far, just 5 distinct genera are known to reside there. Though older remains were finally found in North America that were assigned to 2 different species, resulting in there being 3 accepted types of Smilodon today, the populator, Fatalis, and Gracilis. Over the years it has grown in size, but not by the discovery of new genera. If you were being pursued by any one of them, you would most likely not know which was which, or be able to distinguish them. But they did differ most notably in terms of living location. Having developed in North America from the elder Megantereon some 2.5 million years ago, Gracilis was the eldest of the lot. About 1 million years later, the second oldest, Fatalis, arrived, followed ultimately by the populator, who surfaced 600,000 years after the Fatalis. Size was another aspect where the 3 differed. Each subsequent iteration was bigger than the last, so Gracilis was the smallest, while populator was the 3's gigantic. Not to get it twisted though, each of these 3 species were really massive by cat standards, and certain specimens actually make the Smilodon among the biggest known felids to date. Paleontologists now hold that Gracilis most likely weighed the same as the 3rd biggest cat on Earth, a jaguar. Fatalis, on the other hand, was a bit larger. His dimensions matched those of an African lion, but their more muscular build caused them to be much heavier on average. Their weight is roughly 280 kilograms or 620 pounds, which is similar to huge tigers. The most current we have discounting hybrids. But things get even more busy when you go on to the populator, who was shockingly huge, with the larger bones we know of, namely an amazing skull, indicating a max body size of roughly 470 kilos or 1,040 pounds, so about the same weight as a medium-sized polar bear, Earth's current largest terrestrial carnivore. The Smilodon's great feature is also that most research indicates it lacked a significant degree of sexual dimorphism, so men and women were often around the same size. Stated differently, there were plenty of big people, and given its size, it's generally agreed that each of its habitats housed an apex predator. But the Smilodon was not just large. As noted, it was also rather strong. The first indication that this ancient cat lacked interest in tiny prey. Smilodons specifically had rather massive and strong bones, which in life would have been corded with plenty of muscle. Particularly strong, and not to mention lengthy, the heel bone suggests that the Smilodon was a great jumper, who most likely jumped on top of large-bodied herbivores using its vertical leap. Though its actual jumping ability is unknown, it has been hypothesized to have been able to leap higher than the contemporary lion, who has occasionally been seen to jump over 15 feet or 4.5 meters high. The Smilodon's forelimbs were another region where it was beautifully constructed. All big felids, of course, have strong forelimbs meant to restrain struggling prey. Smilodon, however, truly went above and beyond since its forelimbs were almost 20% thicker than would be expected of a cat of its weight. This bestowed upon its forearms incredible force even more than that of cats larger than it, such as the American lion, for example. The Smilodon was further enhanced by completely retractable claws, and could have readily held down large prey with their ripped forearms. Though they were razor-sharp and curled, the Smilodon's claws were proportionately gigantic, as apparently many things on its body were, so they were unlike those of a lion or a tiger. And even longer than those of a Kodiak brown bear, which is frequently twice the body weight of a fully grown Smilodon. Reconstructions have found them to be twice the size of the claws of a Siberian tiger, with its infamous saber teeth, which were its actual weapon or damage dealer. These claws could have definitely cut right through flesh, but their size was more of an adaptation for holding down big animals rather than doing damage. Actually, these famous weapons have not only shown up in various mammals, including non-mammals, many times throughout history. They are not special to the Smilodon. This, therefore, may make you question why the Smilodon is by far the most popular animal with saber teeth. The answer is thanks in part for their length. Its canines were supersized, proportionately speaking, much like its claws, quite rare in other saber-toothed cats, such the Homotherium. This is so much so that they emerged well out of its mouth, the largest saber teeth of any known felid. These enormous saber teeth might grow to reach 8 inches or 20.3 centimeters long. These were not only for bragging rights, though, they were also well suited for pierce deep into flesh. The tops were a sharp point while the sides were smooth and narrow, so directing more force concentrated at the tips and allowing the Smilodon to produce catastrophic puncture wounds. The design was surprisingly so effective that the Smilodon could get away with a not-so-strong bite. Studies indeed revealed that it could only bite with a force of 1,000 newtons, 4 times less than that of a lion. The canine's longevity also reflects this weak bite, since each was thin and delicate. This only shows, though, that effectiveness of a good piercing weapon depends on less effort required. However, since the Smilodon's teeth wouldn't have been able to attack any spot in the body, paleontologists questioned how the creature killed. Many theories on the nature of its killing mechanism emerged from this. One of the most well-known ones is that people would have used ambushes in thick vegetation to grab or leap onto a prey, which they could then subdue with their claws, so sinking their saber teeth into the soft belly and causing great blood loss. Although cruel, most have rejected this theory in favor of the equally bleak theory that Smilodon either utilized a deep bite or fast-thrusting assaults to destroy the throat of a prey, therefore causing major blood loss and drowning among other terrible symptoms. Pretty well every neck out there was on the menu, as further research showed that its jaw could open to 120 degrees when biting, almost double that of what's seen in humans. One terrifying creature was created by these teeth mixed with its claws, though scans of its brain cavity indicated that it possessed a high degree of coordination, hearing, and superb eyesight that was further supported by its eye sockets. Their shape denoted binocular vision. Hence, it was not only bronze that gave the Smilodon success, and as a cherry on top, they proved to be quite fast too, as a good percentage of Smilodons had trauma to their sternums, which is usually observed as the outcome of high-velocity collisions with prey. These features, along with its weaponry, let the Smilodon hunt a broad spectrum of megafaunal prey, which varied widely depending on where it lived. The biggest creatures around at the time, species including huge extinct bison, camels, Glyptotherium, peccary, laminoids, and occasionally mastodons and Columbian mammoths killed in North America. Prey in South America comprised toxodonids, litopterns, several glyptodonts, horses, camelids, and even caimans. Based on skeletal evidence, we know that some of these creatures were clearly prey, but we are less clear about what the primary prey was, an issue that partly relies on whether the Smilodon was a sociable creature or not. pack hunting would imply larger prey more commonly. The La Brea tar pits in California provide among the most important sources of evidence for a social life among Smilodon. These pits are known as predator traps, since once one animal is caught, many predators would typically get caught alongside them when they sought to obtain a simple meal, which results in 90% of the La Brea bones coming from predators themselves. And Smilodon was no exception. With around 160,000 fossils ascribed to it, it is actually the second most often occurring find in the pits. Many have been convinced by this high yield that Smilodon prowled in groups as in current cats. The more social varieties usually react to distress calls. Larger numbers of remnants so point to some that Smilodon was quite attentive to distress calls, so indicating communal hunting. Another, maybe more fascinating issue is what some have called pseudo-healthcare. Particularly, several paleontologists have noted how certain Smilodons with severe wounds or anomalies who ought to have perished seem to have lived, suggesting that they were cared for. One well-known example of this was someone who, at a young age, showed symptoms of hip dysplasia, but nonetheless lived really nicely until adulthood. Of course, some believe it was more of a loner, citing how lonely skeletons discovered outside of predator traps are. Whatever the case, Smilodon was clearly among the most dominant predators in the world. But it was by no means the only carnivore, since isotopic analysis revealed that the American lion and dire wolves, in particular, had the most similar diet to that of the Smilodon, so posing the most significant rival agent. Though American lions had the stature and dire wolves had the numbers, Smilodon seemed to fare just fine against them. Maybe due in part to its canines being on full show 24/7, which would have scared almost any animal nearby. About the American lion, the two most likely tried their best to avoid each other. But given how similar their diets were, fights were almost a given. And in such fights, anyone's game was most likely. Conversely, rivalry with the dire wolf seems to be more in favor of the Smilodon, since La Brea tar pits suggest that dire wolves would often relinquish their own carcasses to Smilodons, then utterly consumed meat and bone both. Apart from quote-unquote dogs and cats, there were also big bears around. Mostly the short-faced bears whose members may weigh rather more than even the biggest known Smilodon. A few of them resembled genuine dinosaurs, including Ceratosaurus and average-sized Allosaurus. But these bear giants ate more omnivorously, which probably served to reduce conflicts between the two species. These bears also tended to be more solitary, hence if the Smilodon wasn't alone, a bear most likely would not opt to interact and so avoid a conflict and leave the carcass for the cats. And this reference to carcasses really raises a quite interesting unresolved issue. How the heck did Smilodon consume food? Their saber teeth prevented them from eating from the front like most animals can. Rather, they had blade-like carnassials, which would overlap in a shearing motion and cut and dice flesh like butter. These teeth were positioned on either side of the mouth so that people could chew on bits of meat with their heads turned, therefore avoiding the obstructiveness of their canines. Fascinatingly enough, other predators as well as cats today still use this approach, which essentially shows if it ain't broken, then don't fix it. Though the youngest of the saber-toothed cats, Smilodon's unusual teeth ultimately made him pretty unusual and rather successful. And among the three species, it found great spread over the Western Hemisphere. Gracilis and Fatalis were found as far north as Alberta, Canada, and ran very universally across North America between both coastlines. Living in South America, where Fatalis and Populator lived, they were equally common, having created a dominion spanning all the way south to Patagonia. Additionally, capitalizing on mixed biomes, with remnants demonstrating that it adapted to dwell in grasslands, plains, woodlands, closed forests, savannas, subtropical forests, and mammoth steppes. Smilodon was not only good at spreading far and wide. With such an amazing distribution, it's not surprising that this apex predator coexisted with a plethora of other Pleistocene and Holocene icons, including short-faced bears, proboscideans, ground sloths, glyptodonts, toxodontids, camels, deer, horses, bison, terror birds, other large cats, many, many more. It also coexisted with an animal we are somewhat familiar with ourselves. Given our diet can include similar objects, it is believed that we may have come across Smilodon 25,000 years ago, and that the relationship between humans and Smilodon was probably hostile. Unfortunately for our type, only Populator and Fatalis, the larger species, were left standing by the time mankind arrived. Coexistence that much more difficult this created. Furthermore, it has been suggested that a few unfortunate individuals were taken out by Smilodon 2 from time to time, as Meganterion, the cat Smilodon may have developed from, was known to periodically kill Homo erectus. Still, because to our vastly better technology, humans most probably also got the best of some Smilodon. Although there isn't any concrete proof of such conflicts right now, in 2021 researchers did find a petroglyph that appeared to show a group of people observing a Smilodon from a distance, strongly implying that encounters did occur. Sadly, or perhaps not sadly, the coexistence between humans and Smilodons was rather brief. Somewhere along the way, from then to now, Smilodons were lost to history, and the youngest Fatalis and Populator remains datable to roughly 10,000 years, roughly the same time that farming was first beginning in some areas of the world. There is much disagreement and ambiguity around the extinction of the saber-tooth. Some say people helped it die by outcompeting it and causing fires that destroyed habitat. Though most agree that humans were not helpful for Smilodon's population, there is debate on our actual influence. The more conventional wisdom holds that the loss of megafauna during the Quaternary extinction event was the real offender. The Smilodon had less and less prey to pick from as many big animals perished in North and South America. A curse of its own blessing, it had developed to be the ideal gigantic slayer. Sadly, though, there were few giants left, and soon Smilodon perished unable to fit this new environment. Being the last member of its family who had been king over the Western Hemisphere for more than 20 million years, its death signaled the end of not only saber-toothed cats, but also globally. Thanks for watching Ancient Wild TV. The Ice Age may be long gone, but the legacy of creatures like the Smilodon lives on through the stories and fossils they left behind. If you enjoyed learning about these ancient predators, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss our next journey back in time. Until then, keep exploring the wild world of our ancient past.